Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today what we're going to be covering is how I managed to overhead press 70 kilos. I'm going to be sharing my tips on how I got there and how you can get there if it's not something that you've yet achieved. Whether you're stuck on a plateau or you've just started to press heavy, some of this advice is really going to carry over to your overhead pressing performance. So let me take you back to when I first started overhead pressing. I began a complete beginner in the gym, and one of my friends told me that you have to overhead press for big shoulders. Now, the first time I done it, I think I struggled with 25 kilos, and I hated the lift. It felt uncomfortable, it felt weird, I didn't really get what these people were getting at. And really I struggled to press anything that was approaching heavy. But it was some consistent effort, the correct programming, smarter technique, and picking the right accessory exercises, I managed to achieve what I think is a fairly respectable overhead press for my body weight at the time of 60 kg. If you want to improve your overhead press, you have to adopt the key essential principles to do so. You have to be looking at the basics. And the first one of these essentials that I'm going to stress is progressive overload. You have to be going into the gym with a plan of action, and you have to be looking at what your performance is. If you start off just pressing the bar and 1 week you do it for 5 reps, there is absolutely no point and no way that you're going to improve if you just come back the next week and do the exact same thing. You might have even very quickly built up your strength through that kind of newbie game period, but are finding that it seems to be just a little bit more difficult the heavier you get. Now, when it comes into something like that, you have to start really fighting for the improvements. And what we need to think of is we're going to do it in one of two ways. We can work actually both of these ways in tandem, and that's going to be either increasing the reps or making a very small increase on the overhead press weight. And when I say small, I really do mean small. We're talking the smallest amount you can. You know, if you're moving up just £2 or 2.5 kilos, something very small. You don't want to be making big, £10 jumps, 5 kg jumps on overhead press. It's a very finicky lift, and you will be punished accordingly if you try and progress too fast. The best way to think about it is that you're just chipping away every week, trying to snag either an extra rep on your set or an extra little bit of weight on the bar. If you do this over time, you'll definitely see improvements in both your shoulders and appearance, but also your performance on the weight. The next essential principle that we need to cover is technique. Now, one of the first things that I have to get out of the way is we do not want to be pressing this bar out and in front of us. A lot of the times when I ask people to do an overhead press, the first thing I see is this kind of posture of them pushing diagonally out in front of them. Now, as you can see from a side angle, you're immediately away from your base of power. You're almost trying to do a front raise and a press at the same time. And as we know, no one can front raise more than they can overhead press. It's ridiculous. So what we need to do here is just adjust that form, tip the elbows forward, and when we push up, we want the bar directly under our chin. If we were to just push up in that position, we would clock ourselves in the jaw and probably lose a couple of teeth. Now, what we want to do when we're in that position is push up, bob the head out of the way, and then bring the head forward and push through. Just up and through till that bar cruises directly up and locks out above the head. When you're in this type of position, you are much better to take advantage of your muscles and just take advantage of kind of gravity, I suppose, because you're not disadvantaging yourself by pulling your centre of mass forward, by pushing that bar out and away from you. The next technique tip is actually a little more advanced, and it's for someone that's maybe knows how to overhead press and has some skin in the game with it. What I'm going to recommend is thinking about how you breathe. When you overhead press, you don't want to breathe at the bottom of the lift, and you don't want to rest at the bottom of the lift. If you're having a really hard time on the lift and you want to take a rest, and you rest at the bottom before kind of charging up to do a big push up and overhead. I see this all the time. You know, guys kind of they sit in that bottom position, they start to hype themselves up, they're like, yeah, I'm going to do it, and then they always, like to a T, miss the lift and wonder why. The reason being is you've got to think about your leverages and what muscles are worked. If you're just holding that bar out in front of you, that's not a rest. You know, when you squat, if you want to take a rest mid-set and you're squatting, you don't stop at the very bottom of the lift when you're bent all the way down. No, you do it when you're fully advantaged and you're standing up, and you could stand in that position probably all day long. That's how you recover. If you need to take a brief rest and take a breath, the best way to do it is fully lock out above your head, holding the bar, breathe in, re-brace, cinch down into the core like you're going to be punched in the stomach, and then rebound and push up. And that's how you can make a set last a lot longer. You know, you don't have to just fully press off your first breath, off your first bit of momentum. You can get to the top of the lift, breathe and brace, and continue on and really test how far you can train your shoulders like that. You'll probably surprise yourself if you're not doing this right now and you take that advice to walk out to the top, breathe and brace. You'll probably find that you can get another 3 or 4 reps on your max repetition set. Now, of course, you can't get a good overhead press without strengthening the supporting muscles. A lot of people that are strength oriented, and I'm going to put that on quotation marks, the way that I would think about it is Mark Ripito style strength oriented, where they just want to do the compound lifts to get better at the compound barbell lifts. You actually have to be thinking about what muscles you're working. I used to really fall into this mindset where I was like a barbell only kind of specialist, and I just trained for strength, and I only benched to get better at bench, I only squatted to get better at squatting, etc. And it gave me the physique results that you would expect from that, and that's something that I'm having to kind of work hard to overcome and bring up the kind of not only the strength side and the physique side. And these things really do go hand in hand. So when you're doing your overhead press, you've got to think about strengthening your shoulders and working those muscles. You can be doing things like lateral raises, seated dumbbell press. You've got to do the things that you've seen kind of bodybuilders doing. You've got to even focus on doing tricep exercises, you know, doing your skull crushers, you know, doing even just like push downs, lateral raises. These are going to lend themselves to performance on the overhead press. So the main muscles that I would want you to have a look at to bring up your overhead press is, of course, the shoulders. You know, the other heads of the delts. You're looking at also the side delts, the rear delts. You know, obviously your front delt's going to be getting strengthened through your other kind of pressing exercises. But you want to be incorporating a more kind of bodybuilding style, muscle building type of press. But not just the shoulders. You want to be looking at the triceps, you want to be looking at the upper back, you want to be even looking at the core, you know, the abdominal muscles and the lower back muscles together, which makes up a strong core. All of these things are going to be essential for performance on the overhead press because all of these muscles are used. So you need to be doing all your kind of hard hitting accessories for these exercises, and if you add these in, you're going to see a big difference on your performance on overhead press. And of course, we're going to want to cycle out variations. Not only do we want a barbell overhead press, if you want to get better at a strict press, you have to do other things. It's not just enough to press alone. And what I would suggest with this is training 2 overhead presses a week. Something that actually I really liked and worked very well for me was temporarily putting my strict barbell overhead press on the back burner and then focusing on a heavy push press. The reason for this is that you are kind of cheating a little bit in the bottom, but you're having to control that weight on the way down, which is obviously going to be a lot heavier than your strict press, and you can kind of begin to overload that eccentric on the movement and allow yourself to get that bit stronger. The next lift that I would recommend to add in is a strict variation. Now if you want, that can be your strict barbell press, but something that I actually really enjoyed doing and worked very well for me was adding in a seated dumbbell press. This worked wonders for me because it just took the stability factor out of it. It allowed me to train both arms independently, and I just felt that got more engagement. It felt a little bit more hypertrophic. I got a much better pump, things like that. And when I added these kind of 2 things together, a heavy accommodating press with a kind of a bit stricter, more kind of hypertrophic press, these 2 things really seem to play off each other and coalesce into performance on my barbell standing strict press. Now, of course, we also have to mention recovery and mobility. You of course want to be eating enough, you of course want to be getting enough protein into your system. These things are just absolute basics. You need to be doing these. But something else that you do need to work on a lot of the times is mobility. I've seen a lot of guys that struggle to optimise their overhead pressing performance because they can't seem to get enough thoracic extension, they can't get their elbows out in front of their body, they can't seem to push the bar directly up and through, their shoulder mobility won't allow it. Some exercises that I would recommend just to bring these up is a dumbbell pullover and kind of any type of face pull. I think these 2 exercises back to back, they're not like insanely impactful, but I think these 2 exercises when combined will just keep your shoulders mobile enough to allow you to press properly, and you can then kind of maximise your leverages on the exercise. But you can let me know down below, did you like this video? Did you hate it? Have you had good or bad experiences with overhead pressing? And if you did enjoy the video, please give us a like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can stay posted for more of this type of content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.